Hi there. There are certain developments quite positive for climate change for a change, and they don't even have to do with clean energy all that much. One of them is that the Chinese claim to have a new technology for nuclear power re-enrichment of the nuclear fuels, and apparently also possibly the ability to use different nuclear fuels because uranium is running out, by which they claim to have enough energy for the next 3,000 years for nuclear power instead of 70. That is a factor, I believe, well, I didn't calculate it, but I think it's about 60 times as much energy as they have right now out of the same fuel reserve that they have. Nice aspect about it is if it's true, because that has to be confirmed and proven, then you could use that energy to capture the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and make renewable sources, because of course, you know, it is the people that need to decide that yes, okay, you might own the cartel for nuclear power facilities, and you might own the cartel for coal and for oil and for gas, but we don't want you to use it in the way that you're using it right now. We want you to use it in a way that makes it unnecessary to use this resource. So we always have it in reserve. That's much wiser than simply using it up. And the only person that benefits from that ultimately is the seller of the energy, because you keep being dependent on the energy and they keep profiting from it, while it doesn't benefit you to do it that way at all. So I hope the Chinese are right in their technology. It also means that the US, and I'm not a proponent of nuclear power at all. I think it's polluting and etc. But we have a calamity, we have an emergency, a climate emergency, whereby we have to, let's say, try to go clean as quickly as possible and as soon as possible. You know, and in that respect, the US has enough nuclear fuel. It claims to have enough nuclear fuel to replace all the coal-fired and gas-fired electricity plants by nuclear power plants, if they use the same technology as the Chinese. Actually, the world has enough energy. It's all hypothetical, and it would be, let's say, a huge immoral crime if it turns out to be a lie and a promise, just like, well, not so much a lie, but simply an unrealistic thing that will never happen, actually, or that nobody really knows how to make it happen, by which we are delaying our efforts to create renewables, or by which we are spending billions of dollars, or billions of yuan, or renminbi, on projects that ultimately will only help to further the destruction of our planet. You know, that really, in my mind, by this time, lying in politics and in governance should be a hanging offense. You should simply not be able to lie. That's a very strict rule, but at least you should be removed from the process. You know, I'm not for the death penalty actually, but it's just like the silver future short JP Morgan thing, which is extremely ridiculous. Why isn't there a raiding party going through Fort Knox, going through the vaults of JP Morgan? Of course, not to steal the stuff, because that would be extremely funny if you kind of, you know, Security Exchange Commission or the CFTC knocks on the door of JP Morgan, pretends it's going to audit the gold reserves, and just has a few trucks standing outside to steal everything and disappear with it. That would be just extremely funny. But why don't they raid the places? You know, you have months and months of damn rumors that they don't have the silver. They're manipulating all these prices, and so oh shit, of course, yeah. It's a strategic move to manipulate prices, and it's not the US alone, but it's the US in concert with all the banks around the world that are doing that. It's to keep the paper Ponzi scheme going. It's to keep the big fraud going, so you can, let's say, at any moment defraud people from their wealth in any way, and you can pay off everybody that gets angry and has some power. You can always have an IPO of Facebook or some other kind of website and pay these people off. Anyway, there should be much more stronger actions taken. But apparently everybody is somehow, let's say, floating in some kind of comfort zone and not feeling any responsibility. And those people should be removed. Just like the people that might claim that nuclear power is going to be very effective and is a very good investment, but are actually lying because they don't know yet. One of the examples is Bill Gates that is promoting the thorium reactor, which is kind of a slow-burning reactor. Apparently it has a thorium nuclear fuel, which is much more abundant than I can't even say the word, uranium, and it would be a very low maintenance reactor and etc. But it doesn't exist. Let's face it. I have this super energy source. It has all these benefits. I can talk about it for hours, but if it doesn't exist, it's no use to anybody. And you shouldn't be now focusing on your efforts on it or reserving your money for it. Somebody might research it, and it doesn't have to be a multi-billion-dollar project. That's such a complete nonsense. Like, if I have a new concept for a windmill, which is pretty cool. If I want to make it, I need about 600 euros or something like that, and I'm done. It's only because you have patents that you want to sell very expensively, that you want to make the research process very expensive. That happened, for instance, with a very thin film with a silver lining that can be used as a mirror in solar thermal power plants. The research for that product, which is basically aluminum foil, but then using silver, so it's silver foil, and it's not even optimized for let's say durability. It's only found to be pretty durable. Like the most stupid, simple product that everybody in industry could make in a day if you request it. If you go to China, let's make me some PAT-based multi-layered thin film silver anodized stuff with a protective layer that's a little bit harder, so it doesn't really, doesn't get scratchy right away. It's not optimized. The whole process to develop that film was about $130 million by the Department of Energy of the US, and so that means that now that film is actually more expensive than actual aluminium with a silver layer on top and a hardened, I think, ceramic top layer that I've bought from a German company. It's more expensive. That is how you get a perfectly good idea. So how do you get cheap solar thermal mirrors and make it completely inaccessible for the general public? Because you don't want it, that's why. Because the Department of Energy in the US has been dominated and is still dominated by oil companies that have simply infiltrated it and is filling the heads with nonsense and lies. These people should be removed. But the nuclear story is good news, of course, if it's true. And then, if it's true, I'm all for it, because I want to rescue the ecosystem by being very strong on keeping the temperatures low and avoiding runaway climate change. Another thing that's helping at the moment is the floods in Australia that are inundating the coal mines, and I haven't calculated what the emission reduction will be due to that. People are worrying about the steel industry. Well, Australia has lots of sun. If they want to make a solar thermal steel refining plants, which they can, because they only need the heat from burning the coal, from the coal, not the coal, then they should give me a call. And maybe that increases demand for solar thermal, and maybe that breaks through these type of stupid patent-based price controls on mirrors for solar thermal power plants, because of course you can melt steel with solar power, no problem at all. Anyway, but I'm happy about that. I don't worry about it. Fuck it. And there's another good news, also water related, and that is that somebody in Abu Dhabi claims to have developed a machine by which they can make rain in the desert. And it's not based on let's say what you call it, spraying chemicals on clouds and then making them let's say to create a nucleus for the rain, so then the rain falls down. It is based on a process by which you increase the concentration of water low close to the surface of the Earth, so that it becomes buoyant and starts lifting up to a higher altitude. And it's an electrical process of ionization, which is quite a complicated concept maybe for people that haven't got a clue about electronics. But you basically make charged particles that then attract and repel each other. And because of that attraction and repellation, or how do you call that, water kind of concentrates in the air, and then it heats up and it forms bubbles and it evaporates to a higher altitude. The strange thing about it, and so what Abu Dhabi basically has done, it has put these machines which can be powered by renewables according to the patent, put them near the coastline or in an area where there's enough, let's say, moisture in the air, and then these machines started to make sure that there was a kind of a convection, upward convection of the moisture. Because normally if you have a very hot place, let's say you have a lake, it's very hot, you might think that water will evaporate from the lake and all disappear, but that's not true, because if there's no real wind, there's a thin layer of very, very highly saturated water right above or highly saturated air right above the water surface, like a little blanket, that then isolates the water. And so there's no more evaporation, because all the water that tries to evaporate ends up in highly saturated thin layer of air right above the water and then goes back into the water. So the water simply heats up. Of course, if you have winds, then you can take that water from the surface of that saturated air from the surface of the water, take it away, so the water can evaporate more, and that's how you get these these huge storms on the oceans. When there's some wind and that process gets started, you get convection, you get upward draft of hot air, because the water keeps heating up while it's in the air and keeps rising, and you get huge clouds, and those kind of end up being named Katrina. So that's a natural process, but normally that doesn't happen. So you need to break that surface barrier, and this invention in Abu Dhabi does that. There's actually another invention, so I'll link next to this video to a Dutch article, but or I'll just put two links to the two patents of the two inventions that are there to break through this water barrier, this saturated air barrier. The other one is a wind-driven one, and it's a very simple idea, and it's actually from 1985, so you can build it if you want to. And what you need to have is, so you have a piece of desert that you want to have rain in, you have a coastal area where the wind is blowing inwards towards the land, but it's a relatively dry air, because not enough water evaporates from the water in front of the coast. And then you put these windmills in there, a little bit off the coast, and they basically twist around in the wind, and by twisting they create a centrifugal force, or centripetal. I should look all these things up before I start talking about them. But that draws in water into these rotating wings, and then it gets sprayed. It simply gets sprayed above the water into the air, and that's and of course when it tries to drop down back to the water, it's way too warm, the air, so it evaporates in the air. That's how you also can break this barrier. And if you make these things in certain places in the world that I've been looking into, you can actually make it rain in the whole of the Sahara if you want to. It's my assertion. If you want to look into that, I would say do so. If you're in Egypt, you should especially be interested, because there you have an opportunity to make a lot of rain in a huge area of the desert. And the nice thing about these type of projects is that they do add carbon reabsorption on a massive scale with a very little investment, because you basically use the solar power that is there to evaporate the water into the higher atmosphere, and then it rains down later on because it's still cold high in the atmosphere. It loses the water, and you're actually cooling the earth in the same process already, because you're taking the heat from the surface and putting it into the clouds, and there it radiates out into space. where it belongs, most of the heat. So I thought that's very good news. I myself am now looking into energy cooperative in my home village. I probably mentioned it before, and it's surprising that there's lots of rules, and there's 2 rules that are pretty clear, and that is that you have a maximum price to electricity and you have a maximum price to heat. And that's simply, those are rules introduced by the energy companies to protect their market. It can't be more simple than that. But I have a technology actually that I'm working on that is cheaper for heating in Holland than I think gas, and I hope to be able to show it pretty soon. If you have a project, and energy security, local energy security is a pivotal element of being able to decide what you want to do with your own local economy. There's you have in the media in Holland, it's all if it's on renewable, there's really a big portion of it that is all propaganda by energy companies, and not propaganda in the sense buy more oil and coal and gas, but propaganda in the way that they talk about a renewable project, and it's all very sad and very difficult, and everybody's is against it, and it's very expensive, and that's also propaganda. I actually came across a website looking into my energy cooperative where it started with are you sick of the energy prices rising and stuff like that, and then it went on and are you also sick of the carbon dioxide myth that we have climate change? It's such nonsense. And are you also sick about the idea that people are screaming about peak oil? It's all nonsense. So that's what you get. You get people saying, well, we're going to help you be clean, and then at the same time they're not helping you be clean at all. And one of the memes that's very important is the one of space, and that's promoted by NASA. NASA is simply helping the US gain the energy advantage as far as it's still possible in the US with all the crooks. So it's always talking about space. It's amazing. I was reading an article by James Hansen, who is very adamant about climate change, but he just goes like, yes, and the Earth is going to hell, and it's going to be ecosystem is going to be destroyed, and the ocean is going to be empty. You see, and we can try space, but it's going to be hard. That's like, who says that you should give up on Earth and even consider leaving? Let alone that it's just utter nonsense. It's just like people talking about these things as if they are real. Once again, like we could go to Mars with the whole population of Earth. Oh no, maybe, okay, 10 people then. That's gonna be it. Otherwise it's too difficult. Please, shut the fuck up with that type of nonsense, and don't even put it in the media. But that's what you get all the time. So I'll end with my new insight into politics, and that is that politics has become a religion. Politics has become a religion, and what it lacks is a good narrative, a good story like the Bible has. But in essence, it's a religion, because you are being told that you're in a process in which there is, let's say, the people deciding and influencing the laws that are being made. And as soon as you believe that, you'll lose that control. As soon as you believe that you're in a democratic system, as soon as somebody tells you, well, we're gonna lower taxes and free, make the middle class work, and etc., etc., then you lose control. As soon as you believe a politician, as soon as you are called into the religion, you're no longer in charge. And then they're going to do exactly what they need to do to make as much profit as possible on the back office of these political parties. I hope that's clear. I hope it's clear that the Democrats and the Republicans doesn't really make a difference. They're all selling you something that you need to believe, while they should be selling you something that you need to do, which is what the lower governance bodies do, because they're much closer to the people that do not respond to simple belief. I'm a hungry person in LA and I'm just out of my job, and somebody comes up to me and says, well, you have to believe in democracy. You have to vote, and then I'll make sure that we'll do something about climate change. Who gives a damn? While if a person comes up to, you say, okay, you have to go there, and there we can use some work because we are planting trees, because that's good. Apples grow from trees. You can eat those apples. You won't be hungry anymore. So come on, and that's help. And we'll give some food in the meantime, because food is, still relatively cheap. Something you can do. That's what it should be about. People should tell you. If they're leaders, they should guide you into behavior that makes you more prosperous and more successful and more, let's say, social, and etc., etc. Instead, you get stories that make you angry. You get conflicts that are based on nothing. You get ideas that keep you, let's say, make you fall asleep and arrest you in wherever you are, hoping for something to come very soon. And that's utter bullshit. We should really make a point into exposing any lie and any meme, any idea that is not helpful in real life, to anybody in real life. So it's like, yes, you can talk about this and that, and democracy, and wages, and income, and stuff like that, but what does it mean to me personally? I don't give a fuck if you talk about, because if you say, well, we're going to protect the jobs, then it's probably not my job. And if you guys say, well, we're going to make America prosper, then it's probably, the corporations that you're talking about. And my America, the America, or the Europe for that matter, where you are fracking the methane out of the ground, which you don't need to do because there's enough solar power and wind power. Where my environment is becoming poisonous and I can no longer live and not drink my own water. And I don't own anything because you allowed the banks to give me mortgages that basically disown the whole country, make everybody a peasant, because everybody is paying a rent on whatever they have. What are you doing for that? When am I becoming an owner again? When are you giving me some power, for a fucking change? So don't believe the politics anymore, and look locally, as I've talked about in agoracentric.org website. Look at local governments and local opportunities to do something for your own benefit.